Hi everyone, welcome to the shack for this weekend update. It's Friday afternoon. It's warm, very warm actually. Cloudy, the sun's broken through a couple of times, but and it's hot when the sun does break through, but it's been mostly cloudy. Little or no wind, which is great. My antennas are still standing. I think in my video last week I mentioned that the window jumper that I've used for connecting my Wellbrook loop at the bottom of the garden to the power inserter in the shack had failed, had broken after 18 months of being just hanging there on the window frame. So and I was going to fix it. Well, I actually did fix it, and when I say fix it, basically I just took it out took it out of circuit, threw it away. And all I've actually done is pass cable through the rubber seal on the patio door, which works fine. It's going to be quite a lot of effort actually to feed it through the hole that I got drilled for my transmitting antennas, but at some point I will. But that'll do for now. And that actually did solve the problem. Wellbrook loop now working perfectly, but just look at the noise floor on Longwave, and I don't actually know when this occurred, but it's fairly recent. So that's radio 4, 198 kilohertz. This is the noise floor, which is bouncing around minus 90 to minus 100 dBs, which is terrible. And it was doing this actually last night. Now this doesn't affect signals like radio 4. It doesn't affect any of the more powerful stations, but you can see MEDI 1 there, which is usually observable during the day, and quite often you can hear it. But if I go to 171 kilohertz, you can see that there's very little trace, a tiny trace of signal. There's the noise floor bounces up and down, and Antenna Satellor, a video of which I published yesterday. You can see, I mean, quite often that signal's audible, but you can hear it's just literally, the noise floor there is about minus 9, well, bouncing between minus 90 and minus 100 dB. So if I go up a megahertz, so that's medium wave, and you can see the noise floor is down towards minus 120 dBs, which is much better. 2 megahertz, 2.1 megahertz, 100 and lower than 120. So not sure what's happened there, but something is creating a lot of noise on the long wave band, which is a real pain because it's my favourite band really. I don't know whether it's someone's started using a PLT adapter for their internet or not, or what it is, but it's bloody annoying, and the chances of getting it sorted really, I suppose, are minimal. Having said that, my neighbours are pretty good, and if I ask them if they're using one, you know, I don't think they would be offended. What the solution is going to be way more complicated, but I also have to kind of put everything in context. On either side of me, they've been living with all the antenna farm in my back garden for a year and a half, and never had any complaints from any of them at all. And so it's a very sort of fine line that you need to tread really. You know, if one of them is using something that's creating this noise, then yes, that it's annoying. It's going to affect what I can hear on low frequencies. But do I just basically sit on it and not say anything because they've been very good in other ways? I don't know. Intuitively, I feel as if I probably should just keep it to myself and not say anything. And I don't think it's anything in the house because I haven't bought anything new and installed it that could generate this type of noise. So and it is fairly broadband. So anyway, that was the result of fixing the jumper lead and having the Wellbrook loop up and running again. Having said that, I suppose because the antenna's at the bottom of the garden, it could be being caused by a house that isn't necessarily one of my neighbours. I was reading earlier actually, there's a website, banplt.org, and they claim to have measured, or actually measured in noise from a PLT adapter at a distance of 1.1 kilometers, which I sort of find hard to believe, but anyway, if that's true, then the actual source of this noise might not actually be that close, not within a stone's throw. I don't know. So hoping that it will just go away, because that's what normally happens. Like the Stanag signals, you know, eventually they just sort of disappear. So I'm hoping they will. But I don't think it's something that's going on in my house. There you go. This is the 21st century, and this is the sort of CRAP that we have to deal with. Just doing a bit of FT8 on 2 meters. I actually set up to start FT8 on 6 meters again, and then I realised that I had my end-fed wire connected to my Kenwood, because I've got the Kenwood set up for the HF Sked tonight, so that's all sort of ready to go. And FT8 on 6 meters is actually really interesting. Now, a club member, Dave, G8DVK, someone reported to him that they'd worked a station in Japan on 6 meters on sideband. And whilst I would want to believe that, I do find that hard to believe, because I've been running FT8 on 6 meters for a couple of weeks now, you know, outside of lifts and inside of lifts, and the furthest my signal's been decoded to the sort of northwest is Iceland. I've got into the Ukraine, down into sort of Cyprus and eastern Turkey, southern Italy and southern Spain, and that's a week or a couple of weeks of on FT8 using 75 watts. So how on earth somebody could work Japan on SSB? Conditions must have been absolutely superb. Or they're mistaken, or something else is going on, I don't know. But Dave himself didn't believe it either, so yeah, maybe someone can comment on this video. Anyway, so yeah, I can't do FT8 because I've got the antenna connected to the Kenwood for later, so I'm just doing a bit on 2 meters, and my call is being heard, but only quite weakly this afternoon. This is the last 24 hours, because I did a test with Jeff M0UHF, so that's pretty typical really on 2 meters from this QTH into sort of northern France, Belgium, Netherlands, southern Ireland. That would be your sort of typical distribution of decodes, and then when conditions are very good, of course, then you know you can get as far east as Lithuania, Poland, Lithuania. So just doing that, running in the background. It's interesting actually, because I'm not saying it's me, but there's a few of the old timers at the club getting interested in FT8. I don't say old timers in a sort of derogatory way, but there are some guys that have been licensed for decades who are now interested in running FT8, and one of them is Ron G0BNC. I think he's got an 897 connected to WSJTX. He's receiving signals okay, but he's not transmitting. So I did offer my services actually, as I've had both COVID jabs, to go around and help him at some point, but maybe in a few weeks. But he's going to try and fix the problem himself. But yeah, so there's one long-term club member who's finally getting into FT8, which is good. A lot of people poo-poo it because they think it's de-skilled the hobby, but you know, horses for courses and all that, and be very pleased to help him complete his setup so that he can actually get on air. And the fact there's another guy, a newbie, Mr. Haskell 2E0 GTU, who has discovered FT8. He wasn't getting anywhere with sideband because of lack of antenna space, and he's happily working the world on HF with FT8, which is exactly what I did when I got started. So with that radio, that ELAD, 5 watts FT8, working stations all over Europe and a little bit beyond, just with 5 watts. So more power to John and to Ron when they get their when Ron gets his setup running properly. And good for John for finding an aspect of the hobby that he really enjoys, and he's actually getting some results, so it's all good. I'm must make a little comment about about this. So some of you will recognise that radio as the Sony ICF 2001D or 2010 in the United States. An iconic portable, one of the best portable shortwave receivers of all time. Certainly bettered slightly by the Eaton E1 for the short period of time that radio was available on the market. This is much better quality in terms of sort of reliability and longevity. I had an Eaton E1. I was lucky I had one in good condition that didn't break down, but it was so fragile, in reputation at least. I was too afraid to take it anywhere. I don't think it ever left the house. And the reason this is out is because I was recording Mystery 21 radio last night. Another strong signal. It's funny actually, but how they some nights they transmit on 4875 kilohertz, and then last night they were transmitting on 4870 kilohertz. So they shift their transmit frequency by sort of 5 kilohertz now and then. So because they're on a different frequency, I recorded them with the FRG 7700 actually, and their signal was so strong. I thought, I bet even with noise, you know, local QRM, I bet I could copy them on the telescopic in the house. So what better radio to try that with than the Sony 2001D? And lo and behold, I could copy them on the whip here in the shack. So that was yeah, incredible really, when you consider this radio I think came out in 1984 after the original 2001, and to this day still one of the best portables ever, and certainly one of the radios in my collection that is a keeper. I'll never sell it, and touch wood that it keeps on working. I had two of these at one point. In fact, I had two of these. I had two ICF SW55s. I had two SW100s, because I was concerned that if one broke down, I'd struggle to find a replacement. So I ended up with two of each. Yeah, the ICF SW100, SW55, and this radio, the 2001D. I was given my SW77 very kindly by Tam, as some of you know. So I didn't buy a second version of that. And then after a couple of years, nothing broke down, touch wood, and so I eventually sold the other radio that I had of each type. So I only have this one 2001D, cherished object in my collection. And if ever you're stuck for a radio to add to the collection, you don't have one, you definitely should get one. The sync on this is brilliant. Probably the best synchronous detection circuit that I've had experience of using. Although the sync on the Eaton E1 was good, I think the way that the sync works on this, where you can follow the signal through to the carrier and it will lock on the lower sideband or on upper as you sort of tune through a broad signal. It's brilliant. So so there you go. So I'm going to have a play around with this radio at the weekend. Not necessarily on the telescopic, but this radio, I don't use it enough, basically, and but that's what always happens when you've got as many radios as I have. So I'm definitely going to give that radio a whirl at the weekend. For the Sked tonight, I'm going to be using the Kenwood TS480. I'm going to, normally I run this at 200 watts, but when I do that, the RF in the shack sets off my fire alarm, smoke detectors, which is a bit annoying. So I'm going to just wind the power down a little bit to 175. It's really 200 watts or above. If I'm using the linear and I'm going above 200 watts, the smoke detectors trigger, and it is a bit annoying. And I do have a slight concern that, you know, am I setting off next door's smoke detectors, because they live in the same type of house as me, built by the same company, and presumably with the same fittings, etc. So I'm going to wind the power down to 175 and see if that works. And then probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test, and I'm going to probably using well, I'm going to use sideband, but I'm going to do a test and see what the threshold transmit power is, to find out exactly the point at which the smoke detectors do pop off, because that is no good for me. And I know that sometimes the guys on the net can actually hear it in the background and probably think it's a police car going past or something. So, but anyway, Kenwood 480, brilliant radio. So glad I managed to get hold of one, and I'm very happy that, or glad that Andy is very happy with the IC756 that I sold to him. So it's all good. And then nothing more to add really, other than it's the weekend, of course. So there's obviously the Sked tonight, and then there's the Sked tomorrow afternoon. The 2 meter simplex net on 1454125 megahertz, and then there's the DI net on Sunday. Both of those other nets are at 15:30 hours local time. So it's my turn to chair the 2 meter net tomorrow, which is fine, and I presume that the DI net will go ahead. Yeah, it's normally Jack M0JMU that chairs that. He hasn't been around for a week or two, but hopefully that'll go ahead as well. So yeah, it's all good. Okay, well, that's about it. Thanks for joining me in the shack, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Keep safe, everybody. I'm still suffering with my ribs. I'm trying to sort of shut up about it, but it's now been about 10 days, 10 or 11 days since I cracked them, and I'm still in quite a lot of pain, but not as bad as I was. So I think it's going to be several weeks before I'm sort of back to normal, but I'm making a conscious effort not to sit here moaning about it. So but yeah, still uncomfortable, unfortunately, but not so much so that I won't be able to do the net tonight. So there you go. Okay, well, as I said, thanks for watching. I wish you all 7-3. Have a good weekend. Hope the weather's good wherever you are, and don't forget to drop some comments via the chat. I'm still trying to get around most of the comments if I can. It is difficult because I have so many subscribers, but even if I'm giving you a thumbs up, I do read them all. That's the main thing. So none of your comments go unread, good or bad. Thanks for watching. 7-3.